What about Greenland? And Trump smilingly said that Greenland is going to be ours in 2-3 years. Why is Denmark worried to integrate Greenland into Denmark? You might ask, when they have the choice to become a freedom, when they have the choice to become a free country, why they are choosing to stay with Denmark? Hello everyone, welcome back to Namma Laex Bangalore presents current issue of today. In today's episode, we'll discuss about another geopolitical issue that might occur in future. We are discussing about the possible implications or altercation between USA versus Europe. You might be thinking, why are we discussing USA versus Europe? They are long-term allies, they are also members of NATO, etc., etc. But recently USA did a move which was criticized by rest of the world, but Europe stood silent. But within that, there was one country, that was Denmark. Denmark criticized USA's attack on Venezuela. USA's attack on Venezuela. Why, you might ask? Why only Denmark? Why France, UK are silent? Why Finland, other Scandinavian countries are silent? Here also there is a twist, because Denmark has their own strategic interest here as well. When USA attacked and took over Maduro, a journalist asked Trump, a MAGA supporter asked Trump, okay, Venezuela is ours now. What about Greenland? And Trump smilingly said that Greenland is going to be ours in 2-3 years. That was the response in a press meet, not a press meet, in a response to a journalist. So that is why Denmark is worried. You might ask, Greenland is on top of USA and Denmark is somewhere in Europe. Why is Denmark worried? Let me show you map here first. Okay, first let me discuss the Denmark president. So this is Denmark president. Her name is Mette Frederiksen, and she was the one who openly criticized her. She was the one who had the authority, who had the courage to criticize USA openly. And she criticized the USA, saying that USA has been a beacon of hope previously post the World War. USA was the beacon of hope after the World War II. USA made sure that the colonies are not occupied by other powers, but now USA is turning into what it initially opposed. So her remark was so significant. And now, that was her remark. And now first let me discuss about Greenland. Where is Greenland? If you see this map, Greenland is on top of USA, Northern America. So Northern America, which is almost part of Arctic region. And where is Denmark? Denmark is somewhere here. Denmark is somewhere here. Denmark is somewhere here, and Greenland is here somewhere here. So Europe, part of Europe, Denmark is a small country. And I think you can fit like more than hundreds of Denmarks within Greenland. Then how does Greenland have a connection with Denmark? For that, we have to understand the history. So there, let me give a brief introduction of Denmark and Greenland history. So the history of Denmark and Greenland starts from the 17th century. 17th and 18th centuries were the years of or ages of colonialism. So Denmark was also a colonial power. Denmark also had certain settlements set up in India as well. Denmark, after the Great War of Vandivash, they lost to British and had to leave India. But once they left India, they also started looking for other colonies. And one of the colonies they got was Greenland. In the 18th to 19th century, the Norse settlement. Who are these Norse? Norse is a religion, actually Nordic religion. So Nordic race, the people of Scandinavia are called as Nordic race. They set up settlements in Greenland. They follow Norse mythology. All these Thor, Odin, etc. are their gods. So, and in 20th century, Denmark colonized Greenland, converting Greenland into a colony of Denmark. And in the year 1953, post Second World War, Denmark decided to integrate Greenland into Denmark. Denmark was in Europe, a small country. It integrated Greenland. And then in 1979, Greenland was given self-rule. With certain provisions under the control of Greenland directly. And in the 2009, self-rule was given to Greenland, but under the Denmark Kingdom. And in the 2009 provisions, there was a clause that independence will be given, but it is based on the decision of people. Currently, what is the status? The people decided to be part of Denmark. You might ask, when they have the choice to become a freedom, when they have the choice to become a free country, why they are choosing to stay with Denmark? For that also you have to understand. As I told you in the map, it sits right above North America, which is a close territory to USA, and USA always had a strategic interest towards Greenland. So if they become free, if they get independence, then they are afraid that USA might attack and colonize Greenland. So they also have certain strategic interest. If we are part of Denmark, we are basically part of Europe, we are basically part of NATO. So they also have certain strategic interest. So that is why they are also staying with Denmark. You might ask, why USA or other colonies did not dare to attack Denmark for so many years, Greenland so many years? Because Greenland is basically part of Arctic, which was completely snow covered, and people did not find any resources there, and people did not find it worth to be attacked, worth to be colonized. So they left it to Denmark. But now with the technology, but now with the climate change, but now with all the race for resources, many countries are looking towards Arctic. Russia is exploring Arctic, USA is exploring Arctic, and various countries through the Arctic Council are exploring Arctic. So now USA is looking towards Greenland as another source of resources. So US is stepping up to conquer Greenland. So Denmark has criticized the recent USA action on Venezuela. Denmark are thinking, if Venezuela is now, Greenland might be next. If Greenland is next, we might be next. If we are next, then Europe might be next. So that is why we are discussing Europe and USA. So what is the topic here? USA versus Europe, the Greenland crisis. What is this crisis? I already explained you, and why we should discuss that also I already explained you. So let us see what will be the possible outcomes. What can be the possible outcomes out of this? So we have to examine the transatlantic confrontation. Transatlantic because the North America and South America and the Europe and Africa are divided by Atlantic. So this is transatlantic confrontation that could reshape the global order and redefine Western alliances for generations to come. So what is Denmark's unprecedented public warning? As I told you, the president of Denmark recently criticized USA's move to Venezuela openly. So Denmark has issued warning, a strong public criticism of the United States following the renewed American statements about Greenland and recent military posturing. Danish leaders have characterized Washington's approach as destabilizing, unacceptable, and fundamentally dangerous to the international order. And the Danish government has drawn clear red line. Any military attempt by the USA to take over Greenland would constitute as an attack on NATO. See, small country like Denmark is openly threatening USA. Actually, they are not threatening. They are actually showing their concern. They are showing as a reaction, as a retaliation for USA's aggressive behavior. NATO member, which is an act that could effectively destroy the alliance itself. What is the basic agenda behind NATO? Why NATO was started? NATO was started as a reaction to USSR. NATO started as a reaction to erstwhile USSR. Any attack on the European country or the NATO members, an attack on one NATO member will be considered as an attack on all the NATO members. So this was the military bloc, that is NATO, North Atlantic Treaty Organization. Okay, so now Denmark has said that though USA and Denmark both are part of NATO, now Denmark has said that if you are going to attack Greenland, if you are going to take Greenland away from us, it will be considered as an attack on NATO. Let us see what the rest of the Europe is going to respond here. First, let us discuss, why does Greenland matter? Why does Greenland matter actually? First, it is a Greenland NATO territory. Greenland is an autonomous territory of Denmark, fully protected by NATO's Article 5, that is the collective security guarantees. So under Article 5 of the NATO, it is protected by NATO members. Second, self-determination. Greenland belongs to its people. As I told you, in 2009, when they were given self-rule, Greenland was also given a clause that you can decide your independence based on your own plebiscite. So approximately 56,000 residents who maintain their own parliament and cultural identity relay there, and they have accepted to be part of Denmark's kingdom, Danish kingdom. Next, Europe's unity. Europe has broadly rallied behind Denmark, making this one of the most serious transatlantic confrontations since the Cold War. Okay, so strategic assessment. Will the USA actually attack Denmark? That is a bigger question. Is USA actually going to attack Denmark, or USA going to attack Greenland? First is a full-scale military attack or invasion remains unlikely, but the political signals emanating from the Washington has resulted in global alarm about the American intentions in the Arctic region. As I told you in the recent reply to a journalist, Trump said, now let us discuss focus on Venezuela, then we will take Greenland later. So that is the direct implication. So current reality is USA maintains strategic military presence at the Thule Air Base for missiles warning systems in in Greenland. Next, strategic pressure. Washington keeps all options on the table whilst publicly emphasizing diplomatic solutions. But we all know how America operates. If at all there is something within its strategic interest, they will go hell bent on getting it. Next, most likely path will be political bargaining, economic agreements, and enhanced defense cooperation. But with Trump at the helm, we are not sure whether it will go through this particular political bargaining or not. Worst case will be a direct military coercion is attempted takeover triggering the NATO crisis. So let us see, will Europe get the spine to criticize this move, or will they sit quiet as they sit quiet when Hitler was conquering Europe? Next, USA strategic interest in Greenland. Why is USA so interested in Greenland? Obviously, one is the large area it has, and also the Arctic dominance, meaning the control over increasingly navigable Arctic shipping routes and the territorial claims. And then great power competition, countering Russian and Chinese influence in the strategically vital high north region, because Russia shares a large border with the Arctic regions, mainly the Siberian, and also China has a significant influence in the Arctic region. USA is trying Greenland as a counter to all these pressures. And then critical resources, access to rare earth minerals and critical resources is essential for modern technology and defense systems. And finally, defense infrastructure, that is maintaining and expanding missile warning systems and space surveillance capabilities will be more easier if they have the control over Greenland, and they can use Greenland for various purposes. Next, threats. 3 critical threats to transatlantic relations. First is NATO's existential crisis. That is, the alliance faces its deepest potential fracture since formation. Europe would be forced to choose between legal principles and military dependence, which is a choice that could permanently damage NATO unity and collective security architecture. If at all USA is going to take away Greenland, then it means it is directly attacking Denmark, it is directly attacking NATO. Will the rest of the members of NATO attack US as a response? Or are they going to sit quiet and let US do what it does always? It is going to have serious implications in the future. Collapse of strategic trust. Intelligence sharing would be restricted, joint military operations would suffer, and European governments would systematically reduce strategic dependence on Washington. That is, trust, the core currency of alliances, would collapse. What is the core currency of NATO alliance? That is the trust. If at all USA is going to attack after giving all the trust, then future alliances, there will be always a question about trust with the future alliances. Next, rise of European strategic autonomy. Europe would dramatically accelerate independent defense planning, expand national armies, create EU level coordination, and reduce reliance on the American security guarantees, which is permanently reshaping global power balance. Recently, most of the European countries are stepping up their military expenditure, both at the European level and both at the national level, because they are seeing a trend or a threat from 2 immediate threats. One is the all-time threat from Russia, as it is seen from Russia and Ukraine conflict, and second is the new emergent threat from USA itself, their long-term allies. So they are also increasing their expenditure on defenses. Next, if you have to compare USA versus Europe, if you have to compare the military with USA and Europe, who has the higher stakes here? So in the defense budget, USA spends around 850 billion yearly, whereas European combined, all the countries combined, is $300 billion. And active military personnel is 1.3 million, whereas Europe is 2+ million people, and power projection is global reach, whereas Europe is regional to global. And the nuclear weapons, full triad, they have the full triad, but only UK and France has the full triad with respect to nuclear weapons. And space and cyber warfare, there is a global dominance of United States. Europe, it is limited but growing. And at the strategic assessment, global strike capability is there with USA, whereas Europe defense depth and numbers is very low. So as you can see, Europe is nowhere near the US's power or Europe military might. The reality is Europe cannot yet replace US power projection capabilities, but it can make itself strategically independent over time through coordinated investment and political will. So that is the particular status. So now let us analyze the scenarios. What will be the possible outcomes? So there are 4 possible outcomes. First one is the most desired, that is diplomatic compromise, and the likelihood is very high. That is NATO survives with the significant tensions and enhanced US access negotiation through agreements and status quo largely preserved, but trust is damaged somewhere. This is the first likely outcome. And the second likely outcome is political pressure campaign. Likelihood is medium. That is sustained US pressure on the Greenland autonomy, and Europe militarizes further in response, and gradual weakening of transatlantic bonds. And the third outcome is military coercion. The likelihood of military coercion in the modern world is very low. So US threatens to use its force, and Europe as a response uses force as well. As a result, NATO unity collapses, European strategic independence accelerates dramatically, and new global security architecture emerges as a response. Next, European strategic autonomy. Likelihood is very high, and the medium, that is Europe develops independent military capabilities. Regardless of immediate crisis, new power bloc emerges for the next decades, and multipolar order is established. But so most desired and most likely outcome is a diplomatic engagement between the two blocs. Hopefully that is what happens. And what this means for the global order: if the crisis escalates, that is the NATO's collective security guarantee becomes meaningless, and then decades of alliance building will be unravels within months, and USA and China and Russia gain strategic advantage from the Western division, and USA is going to lose its strategic partner in Europe, and Europe accelerates military independence programs, and American-led international order fragments decisively. Okay, and if the diplomacy prevails, if there is no war and if the diplomacy prevails, then NATO survives but operates under the increased tension, which is not necessary as well, and Europe still pursues a greater defense autonomy as insurance, and US global leadership credibility remains damaged, and the new protocols will be established for alliance disputes. And finally, multipolar world order accelerates gradually rather than suddenly. So hopefully there is a diplomatic engagement happens between the both parties, and this does not escalate into a military or war. So, and the choke holds here is, the fault line here is, Denmark's warning is not symbolic. It represents a fundamental red line for European sovereignty and the rules-based international order. So USA move on the Greenland would permanently alter the global world order, and it is going to destroy NATO, and NATO would likely fracture along the national interest lines, and the world would move decisively towards a multipolar security order, and very world will move towards the arms race, world will move towards strategic autonomy, and Europe would emerge as an independent military power bloc within a decade. So let us wait and see. Let us hope Greenland is left for the people, and this does not turn into a military war. That is what the world at the moment requires, because the world is already going through so much of turmoil. What we need is another turmoil between bigger blocs such as US and Europe. Okay, let us hope common sense prevails over this, especially from the US side. With this, I will be ending the video. Jai Hind, Jai Karnataka.